Ladies and gentlemen, let me start with a simple thought. Silence is not weakness. In fact, silence, when used wisely, is one of the most powerful responses we have. Now imagine you're in a meeting, or maybe just having a conversation with someone you trust, and suddenly, out of nowhere, someone says something disrespectful. Maybe it's subtle, maybe it's sharp, maybe it's loud in public. Your instinct? You want to fire back. You want to defend your honor. You want to make them feel what they just made you feel. But here's the truth. Disrespect is not a reflection of your character. It's a reflection of theirs. The greatest leaders I've ever met, military leaders, business leaders, parents, teachers, have all shown me something important. They don't react out of ego. They absorb it. They listen. They stay quiet, not because they're afraid to speak, but because they understand the value of restraint. Silence is often misunderstood. In a world where we are conditioned to respond immediately, to defend ourselves, to assert our opinions, or to retaliate, silence is often seen as a weakness or a failure to stand up for oneself. But the reality is, silence, especially in moments of disrespect, can be one of the most powerful responses we can give. It is an act of control, of intentionality, and most importantly, of strength. When someone disrespects you, your instinct may be to react in the moment, to fire back, to defend your honor, or to set the record straight. And in some situations, that might seem like the right thing to do. However, it's in these exact moments that we should recognize the power of silence, the strength in remaining composed, and the wisdom in choosing not to engage. When someone disrespects you, whether it's in a conversation, a meeting, or even on social media, there's a tendency to want to quickly correct the record. Your emotions rise and your mind races, formulating what to say in return. The urge to assert your position and defend your integrity is natural. But let's think for a moment about what happens when we respond out of those emotions. First, we are reacting, not responding thoughtfully. Our emotions take the wheel, and what we say is often driven by ego rather than reason. We are no longer in control of the situation. The situation is controlling us. In contrast, when we choose to remain silent, we take back control. We step away from the emotional impulse, and in doing so, we create a space where we can choose our next steps with clarity, not out of reaction. Silence in the face of disrespect is not an absence of strength, it is the presence of power. It's about knowing that your response does not need to be immediate and that you don't have to engage in every conflict. It's recognizing that your value is not contingent upon winning every argument or getting the last word. When we choose to stay quiet, we are asserting control over the narrative. We are saying, I don't need your approval, nor do I need to prove myself to you in this moment. The person who disrespects you may want to provoke a reaction, but by staying silent, we avoid falling into their trap. We don't give them the satisfaction of seeing us flustered or upset. Instead, we maintain our composure and dignity, which speaks volumes more than any words could ever do. Moreover, silence allows you to reflect. It provides an opportunity for introspection and self-assurance. When disrespected, we can pause and ask ourselves, why does this bother me? Is this person's opinion truly important to me? In that space of reflection, we often realize that the disrespect is not about us at all. It's a projection of the other person's own struggles, insecurities, or lack of understanding. We see that their actions or words are more about their state of mind than about who we are. In these moments, silence can be a shield that protects us from unnecessary hurt. It's like a mental and emotional filter that separates the noise of others' opinions from our internal peace. By choosing silence, we also avoid the escalation of conflict. Engaging in a back and forth exchange of disrespect can quickly spiral into a situation that is far more damaging than it needs to be. Words can cut deeply, and once said, they cannot be unsaid. Sometimes reacting in the heat of the moment only perpetuates the cycle of negativity. Silence, on the other hand, has the power to diffuse tension. It creates space for the other person to reflect on their behavior and for the situation to settle. It gives both parties room to breathe, to calm down, and to reconsider the situation from a more objective perspective. Lastly, silence allows us to choose a better response later. It's often when we've had time to process that we come to realize what we truly want to say and how we want to handle the situation. A well thought out response delivered at the right moments can be far more impactful than a hasty retort. It can shift the tone of the conversation and show that we are not easily rattled, that we can handle adversity with grace, and that we are secure in our own worth. In conclusion, silence is not about avoiding conflict, but about choosing not to engage in unnecessary emotional battles. It's a conscious choice to protect your peace and to demonstrate that you are in control of your own emotions rather than being driven by the actions of others. In the face of disrespect, staying quiet is a response rooted in strength, wisdom, and resilience. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful tools we have in maintaining our integrity and in navigating the complexities of human interactions. When someone disrespects you, it can feel like a direct attack on your character, your integrity, or your self-worth. The words they choose, the tone they use, or the actions they take may leave you questioning your value and feeling hurt. In these moments, the instinctive reaction is to defend yourself, to prove that you are deserving of respect. But the truth is, disrespect is rarely a reflection of who you are. Instead, it's often a reflection of the person delivering it. Their actions or words are a manifestation of their own struggles, insecurities, or limitations. By understanding this, you can begin to detach your sense of self-worth from the way others treat you, and in turn avoid internalizing their negativity. When someone disrespects you, it's easy to assume that their behavior says something about you. We often judge others' actions as if they are a direct commentary on our own actions or qualities. But more often than not, the person disrespecting you is simply projecting their own issues onto you. They might be dealing with personal frustration, insecurity, or even jealousy, and you happen to be the target of that energy. Their disrespect is less about your actions and more about their own inner struggles. And by recognizing this, you can begin to shift the focus away from yourself and onto understanding that their behavior is about them, not you. For example, think of a situation where someone speaks harshly to you or dismisses your ideas in a group. It's easy to take it personally, to think, I must have said something wrong, or I'm not good enough. However, if you take a step back and analyze the situation from a broader perspective, you might realize that the person who disrespects you is simply struggling with their own issues, whether it's feeling threatened by your ideas, feeling insecure in their own abilities, or simply having a bad day. By understanding this, you no longer see their disrespect as an attack on your character, but rather as an expression of their own unmet needs or insecurities. Moreover, by recognizing that disrespect reflects the other person, not you, you free yourself from the burden of trying to defend or justify your worth. You no longer feel the need to fight to prove your value because you understand that their words or actions do not define you. You realize that your value isn't determined by someone else's opinion of you. It is rooted in your own self-perception, your values, and your action. When you accept that disrespect comes from a place of the other person's internal world, you can step away from the emotional reaction and instead focus on how you choose to handle the situation. It is important to remember that the person who disrespects you may not be fully aware of the impact of their actions. In many cases, disrespect is unconscious, a product of their own upbringing, cultural background, or emotional state. People often react based on their own experiences and the emotional tools they've developed over time. Therefore, their disrespect is not necessarily intentional or personal, and recognizing this can help you take a step back and not let their behavior affect you deeply. Furthermore, the ability to view disrespect through this lens of understanding can significantly shift how we approach future interactions. When we no longer take others' behavior personally, we empower ourselves to respond with compassion instead of retaliation. We might feel less hurt by the disrespect and more focused on responding with kindness or calmness. This doesn't mean we should tolerate disrespect, but it means we stop letting it rattle us or shape our self Another critical point is that when we detach ourselves from the disrespectful actions of others, we also prevent ourselves from perpetuating the cycle. When we react with anger or defensiveness, we invite further conflict and negativity. By recognizing that their disrespect is about them, we can choose to disengage or respond thoughtfully rather than escalating the situation. This decision not to engage can be incredibly liberating, as it allows us to maintain our emotional balance and avoid being swept up in someone else's emotional turmoil. Ultimately, learning to see disrespect for what it truly is, an external reflection of someone else's issues, helps us to retain our peace and self-worth. When we accept that others' disrespect does not define us, we take back control of the situation. Instead of internalizing their negativity, we stand firm in our own sense of value, unaffected by their words or actions. In doing so, we create an emotional distance that allows us to rise above the situation and focus on what truly matters: our own personal growth, our peace of mind, and the way we choose to respond in the face of adversity. In the face of disrespect, it's easy to want to react immediately. The impulse is often to defend ourselves, to assert that we're right, or to retaliate with words or actions that might restore our sense of control or self-respect. This reaction is rooted in our natural desire to protect our dignity and to ensure that we are seen and heard. However, the most effective response to disrespect is often the one that doesn't involve reacting at all, or at least not immediately. True strength in these moments lies in restraint, in the ability to pause, reflect, and choose how to engage, or whether to engage at all. When we react impulsively to disrespect, we're often allowing the emotions of the moment to dictate our behavior. In these heated moments, our thoughts tend to be clouded by anger, frustration, or hurt, and our responses are often driven by these emotions rather than by reason or calm reflection. We might say things we regret later or escalate a situation unnecessarily, which can result in more damage to our relationships and to our own peace of mind. Our reactions may also inadvertently give the other person the power to control the narrative. By reacting from a place of emotion, we lose the opportunity to respond with wisdom and composure. On the other hand, choosing restraint allows us to regain control of the situation. By pausing and taking a step back, we can avoid being swept up in the tide of negative emotions. We create space to think clearly and consider the best course of action rather than responding based on an emotional impulse. Restraint allows us to maintain our composure and emotional balance, which is essential for making thoughtful decisions in moments of conflict. In these moments, the key is to recognize that we do not have to react immediately to everything that happens to us. We have the power to control our responses, and we can choose to let things go or to address them in a more measured and constructive way. Restraint does not mean avoiding conflict entirely or suppressing our emotions. Rather, it's about responding thoughtfully and intentionally. Sometimes the best way to handle disrespect is not to engage in a back and forth argument, but to take a moment to compose ourselves and assess the situation. By choosing to hold back in the heat of the moment, we allow ourselves the opportunity to reflect on why we're feeling upset or hurt. We can ask ourselves, is this really worth my energy? Does this person's opinion or behavior define who I am? What do I want to achieve from this interaction? These questions help us to gain perspective and determine whether engaging is even necessary. In many cases, we may realize that the best course of action is simply to walk away or to ignore the disrespect. This ability to refrain from reacting impulsively can also prevent the escalation of conflict. When two people are in a heated exchange, the situation often becomes a battle of egos where both parties are determined to win the argument or to assert their dominance. In such cases, continuing to engage only fuels the fire, making it more difficult for either party to reach a resolution. By choosing restraint, we avoid this cycle, we give the other person space to cool down, and we avoid being pulled further into an emotional struggle. Sometimes, the best way to resolve a conflict is to let it diffuse on its own by simply stepping back. Furthermore, restraint gives us the power to choose the right moment for action. By taking time to pause and reflect, we are not closing ourselves off to the possibility of responding, but instead we are waiting for the right moment to engage constructively. Often, after we've had time to process, we can approach the situation from a place of clarity and calm, which makes our response far more effective. We might find that we no longer feel the need to defend ourselves, or that we can address the issue with a level-headed explanation that doesn't escalate the tension. Restraint allows us to act with intention rather than react out of reflex. Another aspect of restraint is that it reflects our strength and emotional maturity. It shows that we are not easily shaken by external circumstances or by the behavior of others. When we are able to remain calm and composed in the face of disrespect, we communicate to those around us that we are not defined by external opinions or actions. We also demonstrate that we have the emotional intelligence to handle difficult situations with grace and dignity. This strength is not only a sign of self-control, but also of leadership, as it influences those around us and sets a positive example for others. In conclusion, choosing restraint in the face of disrespect is not a sign of weakness. It is a sign of strength. It is the ability to maintain control over our emotions, to think before we act, and to decide whether a response is necessary or beneficial. Restraint allows us to avoid unnecessary conflict, to protect our peace, and to respond with wisdom rather than impulsivity. It empowers us to handle difficult situations in a way that reflects our character and integrity, and ultimately it helps us preserve our relationships and our sense of self. When we are disrespected, our natural inclination is often to respond immediately, to correct the wrong, and to make sure our dignity is restored. The desire to fight back, to defend ourselves, is a reflex that many of us feel in these moments of tension. But what if instead of immediately reacting, we chose to step back and intentionally choose how we respond, or whether we respond at all? The idea of choosing our response, especially when faced with disrespect, is incredibly powerful. It allows us to move away from the knee-jerk reactions driven by our emotions and instead approach the situation from a place of mindfulness, clarity, and control. This conscious decision-making process is not about being passive or avoiding conflict. Rather, it's about actively deciding how to engage in a way that aligns with our values, preserves our peace, and avoids unnecessary escalation. When we react impulsively, we often do so out of a sense of needing to prove something, whether it's that we're right, that we deserve respect, or that we can stand our ground. But these immediate reactive responses can often make the situation worse. We might escalate the conflict, say things we later regret, or make the situation more personal than it needs to be. In some cases, these reactions can even damage relationships and cause long-term emotional harm, not just to the other person, but also to ourselves. This is why choosing to respond intentionally becomes such an important practice. By pausing before reacting, we create the mental and emotional space necessary to assess the situation thoughtfully and determine the best course of action. Choosing your response means recognizing that you always have a choice. No one can make you react in a particular way. It's up to you how you decide to handle the situation. This awareness of choice is empowering. When you understand that you can take a moment to breathe, reflect, and process, you are no longer at the mercy of the other person's disrespect. Instead of feeling pushed into a corner and reacting out of emotion, you now have the power to decide whether engaging in a confrontation is even worth your time and energy. You can choose whether the issue at hand deserves a response or if it is something better left unaddressed. Sometimes choosing not to respond at all is the most powerful option, allowing the disrespect to dissipate without any further fuel added to the fire. Intentionality in our responses allows us to disengage from the situation with greater dignity. It means we do not let the other person's words or actions define how we behave. Rather than being controlled by the emotions they stir in us, we choose to act in alignment with our values. For example, if we hold kindness, understanding, and self-respect as core values, then responding with grace or choosing silence in the face of disrespect upholds those values. By not reacting immediately, we show that we are secure in who we are and that we do not need the approval or validation of others to define us. One of the reasons why choosing how we respond is so important is because of the emotional impact it can have on us. Reacting in the heat of the moment can often cause us to feel worse, fueling negative emotions like anger or resentment. These emotions not only affect our mental state, but also our physical well-being. When we respond intentionally, however, we give ourselves the opportunity to protect our emotional health. We stop the cycle of escalating negativity and avoid letting someone else's actions dictate our emotional state. In fact, by stepping back and choosing how to engage, we maintain control over our inner peace. We protect ourselves from getting caught up in drama or negativity, and instead we choose a path that maintains our composure and well-being. The ability to choose our response is also a key component of emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence involves recognizing our own emotions and the emotions of others, understanding how emotions impact behavior, and using that awareness to guide our actions. When we are intentional with our responses, we are demonstrating emotional maturity. We are not acting impulsively based on fleeting feelings, but instead we are using our emotions as signals to pause, reflect, and decide on the best course of action. Emotional intelligence allows us to engage with others in ways that are constructive and thoughtful, even in challenging situations. Additionally, choosing how we respond in the face of disrespect sets an example for those around us. When we respond with intention and composure, we model emotional resilience for others. Whether it's in a professional setting, with family, or among friends, our behavior can influence how others react in similar situations. By demonstrating the power of choosing one's response, we encourage others to approach conflicts with the same level of mindfulness and control. This can lead to healthier, more respectful interactions and a more supportive environment, whether at work or in personal relationships. How we respond to disrespect says a lot about who we are as individuals. Our reactions in moments of tension reveal not only our character, but also how we perceive ourselves and the values that guide us. In moments when we are disrespected, the way we choose to handle the situation, whether through silence, restraint, or an intentional response, demonstrates our true strength and emotional intelligence. Our response is a reflection of our internal peace, our self-worth, and our ability to rise above the external noise. In essence, how we handle disrespect ultimately defines us far more than the actions of the person disrespecting us ever could. It's important to understand that how we respond to disrespect is not just about the immediate interaction. Our responses set the tone for how we allow others to treat us in the future. If we constantly react with defensiveness or anger, we may inadvertently invite more of the same behavior into our lives. People often treat us according to how we allow them to treat us. If we respond to disrespect by escalating the situation or by defending ourselves in a way that reflects our hurt or anger, we might communicate that such behavior is acceptable. On the other hand, if we respond with calmness, restraint, and grace, we communicate that we expect respect and that we will not tolerate anything less. In this way, our response shapes the boundaries we set in relationships, whether they are personal, professional, or casual. Our value is not determined by how others treat us. This is a fundamental truth that can often be difficult to embrace, especially in the face of disrespect. It's easy to internalize the negative words or actions of others, especially when they come from someone we care about or someone in a position of authority. However, allowing others' behavior to dictate our sense of self-worth is a dangerous path. When we respond thoughtfully, with poise, or sometimes even with silence, we reinforce the idea that our value is intrinsic and not subject to the judgments or opinions of others. We are not defined by the actions of others. We are defined by our values, our actions, and how we choose to navigate the challenges life throws our way. In moments of disrespect, it's crucial to protect our peace. Our peace of mind is something that cannot be taken away unless we allow it to be. Disrespect has the potential to stir up negative emotions, anger, hurt, frustration, or disappointment. But when we respond with an awareness of our own inner peace, We refuse to let those emotions dictate our actions. By choosing a response that maintains our peace, we show that we value our emotional well-being more than the fleeting satisfaction of responding in kind. The person who disrespects us might want to provoke a reaction, but by staying composed, we take away their power to control how we feel and how we behave. Choosing how we respond also allows us to be more intentional about the message we send to others. Every interaction is an opportunity to teach others how we wish to be treated. If we respond to disrespect with grace and dignity, we teach those around us that disrespect will not affect us negatively or sway our integrity. Our response becomes an example of how to rise above the pettiness of conflict and handle challenges with maturity. Whether in a professional environment, among friends, or within family dynamics, our behavior influences others, encouraging them to adopt a similar approach in handling their own disagreements. This creates a culture of respect and emotional resilience that benefits everyone involved. Furthermore, our response to disrespect also reveals the level of emotional maturity we possess. It takes significant emotional intelligence to pause, reflect, and choose the best course of action when faced with disrespect. In these moments, we must assess not only the disrespect itself, but also our emotional state. Are we reacting out of hurt? Are we defending our ego? Or are we responding in a way that aligns with our values and long-term goals? Choosing a thoughtful, controlled response demonstrates that we are not easily swayed by negative emotions, and it shows that we are capable of navigating conflict in a way that is constructive rather than destructive. This level of emotional maturity helps us maintain our dignity and preserves the relationships that matter most to us. In the grand scheme of things, how we respond to disrespect is a reflection of our growth and self-awareness. It's easy to let our emotions take over and react in a way that might feel good in the moment, but later leaves us feeling regretful or drained. But the ability to respond with thoughtfulness, with calmness, or with silence, our ability to manage our responses in challenging moments is a testament to our emotional growth and our capacity to navigate life's difficulties with wisdom and grace. It's not about avoiding conflict or suppressing emotions, but about choosing how to engage with them in a way that preserves our integrity and peace.